For the first time in franchise history, that's right, franchise history, your Philadelphia Eagles are 8-0 after a Thursday night win over the Houston Texans, 29-17. We'll recap that game right here on the Locked On Eagles postgame show.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to a Thursday night, Friday morning edition of the podcast. The Philadelphia Eagles are undefeated, 8-0 after a 29-17 win over the Houston Texans. Guys, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before because BetOnline is where the game starts. Gino, I know this game was sloppy for a little bit and you played down to your opponent at times, the 1-5-1 Houston Texans, but overall this team showed they were the superior team for 4 quarters, and just to see 8-0 on the record at the end of the game still feels surreal to me. The best start in franchise history.
This night is going to be forgotten about in probably 2 to 3 weeks because it's a Thursday night football game. Sunday's going to come, Monday Night Football is going to come, and then the Eagles are going to be in the midst of a playoff race. But this night goes down as one every Eagles fan should remember. You've lived through the Ron Jaworski years, the Randall Cunningham years, the Donovan McNabb years, Michael Vick, Nick Foles, Carson Wentz, Nick Foles again, Jalen Hurts now. And for the first time ever, this team is 8-0. Their best start, no pun intended, from 2004, where they went 7-0 to start the year. They make it to the Super Bowl that season. But this year, Lou, I'm just enjoying the ride. It wasn't pretty, but none of the Eagles' wins have ever been pretty. Their Super Bowl wasn't pretty. They barely beat Atlanta. They go into that game, and it goes down to the absolute wire against the Patriots. It's never pretty for the Eagles. And tonight, of all nights on a short week, Lou, the thing I take away from it is good teams are able to win some of these type of games.
Right.
Great teams win these games when everything is going against you in the first half, and you're able to just pull it out in the second half, wear a team down. You got the run game going. You got the offense working. You only allow 3 points on defense in the second half.
Yep.
That's really what we should take away from tonight.
Yeah, and again, it was a tougher game than we thought. Even what John Hickman, host of Locked On Texans, said to me on Thursday morning on Crossover Thursday. We thought this game was going to be a blowout. BetOnline has the Eagles at -13.5. The Texans do cover in this game, so I apologize to anybody that took the Eagles to cover. And they were up 7-0 early. Houston scores on the first drive. They had not done that all year, and the game was tied at halftime, 14-14. Gino, for sure, Dameon Pierce, the rookie running back of the Texans, dominated this game, 139 yards on the ground, 5.1 yards per carry. But like you said, after 4 quarters, it felt very similar to the Detroit game where Houston gave you everything they had, but they were on E eventually, and eventually talent trumps all, and you could tell how much better of a football team this Eagles team was. And the poise, especially, when they get punched in the mouth, they always answer, and I think that's represented so perfectly by who's under center, Jalen Hurts. I mean, the night he had today, we could talk about the elite pocket ability again from Jalen today. 21 of 27, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 76.9% completion percentage. But, Gino, I'm more impressed with just this kid has never wavered. Early snaps, he finds a way to hold on to the football, the escapes from pressure, the completions he made against the blitz. I mean, this game from Jalen and the offense, that definitely was not the problem. It was 2 weeks in a row where Hurts was dominating from inside the numbers.
I, once again, probably am on the opposite side of what most people are saying in this game, where they're just run the ball and get away from the pass completely. I look at this game, Lou, how I'm sure many Chiefs fans and Bills fans have looked at many of their games over the last couple of years or so. When you watch Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes, right? Do you ever get mad that they are throwing the football?
Oh, no. Yeah.
No. And with the way that Jalen was throwing it tonight, even with as much pressure as he was under. I mean, Jordan Mailata got bested by Jerry Hughes multiple times tonight.
Lane Johnson gives up his first sack since 2020.
He does.
Yeah.
Wait, does he officially? Did he get charged with that?
That last play, yeah, I think he's going to get charged with that. Yeah.
Well, in the end, Jalen Hurts still did enough under pressure. I thought his pass to Devontae Smith on the dagger concept
against the blitz. Oh,
yeah. AJ Brown running the go. Devontae Smith runs the deep up and he runs out at about
4 weeks ago. He
yards.
Probably doesn't complete that, Gino, that you're just seeing the growth in season.
And he stood in the pocket, Lou, on that pass and delivered an absolute dart. They were moving it at will. If they don't turn it over there on that fumble, which goes to the offensive line, getting pressure on the quarterback, I don't think the pressure was as much Jalen trying to make creativity happen as it was that the guys for Houston were winning their one-on-one
genuinely this time,
the
the Texans actually sometimes were getting the best of this offensive line. They have some athletes. I mean, Jerry Hughes is a very good veteran, underrated pass rusher. 7 sacks this year. You could see Christian Harris, the second-round Alabama linebacker, flying around. They had Derek Stingley in the secondary, Jalen Petrie, guys me and you really like this offseason. So they had some players making plays, but Jalen Hurts, you could just see the development of, the honey hole throws, Gino, too, in zone coverage to Dallas Goedert in both halves. He just felt so in control. He just sees the field so much better than he did last year. It's not even close. A 128 passer rating today, second highest of the year, only behind last week's performance against Pittsburgh. He's stringing along these performances, and they're not even really on the ground. 23 yards today on 9 carries. Did have that one Houdini-like play in the third quarter that was awesome to watch. Very vintage Jalen Hurts, but he's been doing his damage in the pocket, and that's so exciting because, as we say all the time on this show, we know they can always be a good running team, but if they can be this consistently elite in the passing game, Dallas Goedert, 100 yards today, A.J. Brown and Goddard get a touchdown. I don't know how you're going to stop this football team.
You can do it in every single way. Miles Sanders goes for a buck on the ground.
Yep.
Looked excellent. Looked decisive.
5.5 yards per carry, 93 yards, and a touchdown.
This is the 2019 version of Miles Sanders that I think a lot of people wanted to see when it comes to the running game.
Because he put the visor back on.
Oh, man. Fletcher Cox with that dark visor.
He's just a
scary-looking guy, man.
It's a better player, yeah.
It definitely does. But this offense, Lou, it's so multiple. And the way they get it done with whatever is working. When the pass is working on one drive, when the run is working on another drive, they mix it in towards the goal line. Everything just seems to work for them right now. And the thing I liked from this game is that this pass defense for Houston was the better part of their defense, and the Eagles were still able to really do what they wanted against them.
They were 8th against the pass this year. They're a pretty solid pass defense.
Yeah, Steven Nelson, man. He sacked Jalen Hurts. I'm going to be so mad about that for the rest of my life. But I am so pleased with how they collected themselves after halftime when things were a little wavy, and the icing on the cake was Jake Elliott misses one of these over 50-yard kicks, which he seems to be money on, and you're going into halftime for the first time ever without the lead. And that's just another bit of adversity that you had to overcome. How were you going to go out there? Well, they don't have a great first drive, and then the adversity's against you again. The defense comes up big when you need it. 2 interceptions late, one from the league leader right now in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Pay the man, give him his bag already. That extension's got to come sooner rather than later. And James Bradberry closes out the game after getting picked on early by Philip Dorsett on that long over-the-shoulder throw. He closes the game out with an interception. Javon Hargrave, career day, 3 interceptions, multiple hits on the quarterback.
Sacks,
I think, three sacks. That would be crazy if he had 3 interceptions. Multiple tackles as well.
I don't know
what else.
Right?
They don't.
That's the
what
thing.
Else can you say?
There are hiccups, and you saw some hiccups today. The run defense is definitely a problem, and we're going to get into that.
It's an issue.
It's just like that first offensive drive is the perfect example. Just like week 1 against Detroit, a bad team punches you in the mouth early, and it doesn't rattle this team like it would have rattled past Eagles teams. You drive down 75 plus yards on what was it? How many plays?
91 yards.
Yeah, 91 yards.
They started at the 9-yard line.
That's right.
Yep,
and they just marched down 7-0. Easy money. Miles Sanders touchdown. It's Jalen Hurts, but it's not just Jalen. It's the veterans. It's the young players on both sides. They're just so well coached and just so collectively mature and poised. And I think you noticed that today. And it's easier too when you have the confidence knowing you're a much better football team. But, you know, I don't think the problem today was they were overlooking Houston, and they got the win. And again, that's with the outlook of the NFC right now with 6-1 Minnesota on your tail. The Giants and Cowboys both have 6 wins. You had to keep stacking victories, and this is a big one.
It was a short week. You're coming off of that game against Pittsburgh, and you would figure that they would have been better rested and after a bye week, especially. I mean, you had 2 weeks off. You have a game against Pittsburgh, which the starters sat out most of that fourth quarter, and you come into this game expecting that you would be red hot, roaring, and ready to go. It seemed that there was a switch in the second half, and you could see the Eagles' defense started to fly around a lot more. They were pursuing to the ball. They were getting off blocks. They were getting to the football in the air. Same thing with the offense. They just put it in their playmakers' hands and let them do wonders. Dallas Goedert, you give that ball to him anywhere on the field, and magic is going to happen.
Devontae Smith's had his monster games. A.J. Brown's had his.
Yep.
Goddard's been the most consistent, maybe, with week in and week out. You know what you're getting numbers-wise, ahead of course, Brown first, but then Goddard. But today was the big Goddard game. 100 yards, 8 catches, and a touchdown on the day. Overall, a complete team win. Eagles undefeated, 8-0 for the first time in franchise history. We'll continue to recap it because it wasn't a perfect game. We got some issues to talk about on the defensive side of the football. But first, a word from our sponsors. And the first one is over at Prediction Strike, the world's first sports stock market. You can now invest in professional athletes, just like stocks. It's a lower risk alternative to sports betting, and athlete prices move based on performance and supply and demand. If you invested in Jalen Hurts a year ago, you'd be up 48.2%. That might have moved today after another dominant performance by QB1. Rashad Penny of Seattle is up 154%. Kyle Pitts is down 44.12% after struggling to start the year. Tons of other options for you to look at. All athletes, they also benefit from this. They're entitled to a percentage of their market cap, unlike sports betting companies. 2.5% trade fees, lowest in real money sports. You can invest in 4 sports, not just the NFL, but UFC, NBA, and MLB as well. Everyone knows you should be investing, but why not invest in what you actually know as a football fanatic? Download the Prediction Strike app and use the promo code LOCKED, that's LOCKED, for a free share when you sign up and make a first deposit of $20 or more. That's promo code LOCKED for a special one-time giveaway. Prediction Strike will choose one person who signs up with the code LOCKED and make a deposit to win 100 free random shares. That could be worth up to $3,000 if you get lucky and receive Josh Allen shares. Invest in what you know on Prediction Strike, the stock market for sports.
And if you have been waiting for this sponsor to come back, folks, this is a big one. I'm very happy to see Built Bar back and better than ever. It's Christmas time, and they have 2 of the best flavors coming out. Lou, listen to this. White chocolate, peppermint granola,
I love white chocolate, and
candy cane brownie puff bars. If you don't know what Built Bar is by now, let me tell you. It is 100% real chocolate, and it is the best tasting protein bar on the market with 17 grams of protein, shockingly low sugar and calories, with only 130 calories. If you enjoy candy like myself and you want to sink your tooth into something sweet but not feel any of the guilt, make sure you check out Built Bar today. They have all of their original flavors. They also have cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper as well. They're coming out with new flavors all the time. They have seasonal, they have their traditional, but they always have one thing that is constant, and that's the 15% off that you can get over at Built.com today. Use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, LOCKEDON 15, Locked On 15 at Built.com to get 15% off your order of Built Bar.
This is the Locked On Eagles post-game show. We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insight only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. We are recapping the Eagles' 8th win in a row, 29-17. Over the Houston Texans. Gino, as we mentioned, it didn't come easy at times. Houston was up 7-0 early. The game was tied at halftime. The Eagles didn't have a lead at half for the first time all year. And the biggest issue, and we said this heading in, if you can just tackle Dameon Pierce, you're going to crush this football team. Brandon Cooks was out. Nico Collins was out. They had Phillip Dorsett and a bunch of receivers that were basically me and you out there. Not to bring anybody down, but they were just backup players against the best team in football. But the Eagles really struggled with that one positive thing Houston had in rookie running back Dameon Pierce. We noticed this offseason how good his contact balance and power is. We saw that today, 139 yards on the ground from Pierce, 5.1 yards per carry. They really missed Jordan Davis today, and I thought that was the key reason Houston was in this football game.
I believe I had him as my 4th highest.
Yeah, you liked Pierce. And I really didn't even know much about him until I was at the Senior Bowl, and I saw this guy just being impossible to tackle. And I'm like, who is this? And you saw that tonight.
I believe contact balance and your ability to create yards after contact as a running back is one of those things that should be held in a little bit higher regard than a lot of the other measurables. And one thing that was kind of strange to me was that last week after playing Najee Harris, who's a very similar runner, I mean, a much bigger build, but a physical guy who they were able to tackle well. And they had one of their better tackling performances last week against Pittsburgh. You come into this game, it was rather shocking to see how bad it was at all 3 levels. There was a play where it's just a quick screen over to the wide receiver, and Avonte Maddox reads this thing perfectly, and all he does is just stand straight up, not break down at all, and not try to attack the back hip. And it was very strange to see how poor the Eagles were.
Like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson the one time tried to lower the shoulder on Dameon Pierce standing straight up. You have to wrap that guy up.
You have to, and that type of runner, I believe, will continue to give the Eagles fits. They seem to be very good going against these elusive guys to where they could track them out at the edge. It's more these physical downhill type of runners, because when you're playing, especially with that 4-man front without Jordan Davis now, if they can combo 2 guys, double 2 guys out of there, being Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, one-on-one, one of the edge rushers, and just run off tackle. I mean, they were doing that all day. They were getting Josh Sweat off of his gap multiple times, running off of the tackle, and you're hoping that the second-level defenders can clean it up. There was a lot of inconsistency when it comes to tackling. Hopefully, with it being a mini bye, you now have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and all of next week.
Next up Monday night against Washington,
Tackling should be the point of emphasis for the next 10 days. I mean, whatever it has to be, whatever you have to do, whatever drill it is, that should be the one point of emphasis, because the coverage is there. They're getting home when they need to on coverage sacks, when the coverage is good on the back end. The front 4 is hitting home when called upon. Javon and Hargrave did it late. The biggest area is not getting off the field in those situations because you're not taking that guy down on first contact. He's able to get second and third level yards.
It's also, too, I thought there were too many times, especially considering the circumstances. Jordan Davis on IR, he's going to be out for at least 4 to 6 weeks. You know, the fact that they had all these light boxes and they're playing sometimes this off-zone coverage, when, again, you have the best cornerback duo in the league that's allowing the lowest opposing passer rating in all of football. And Houston has nothing to threaten you with down the field. I know Phillip Dorsett beat Bradberry on that one sluggo, but that was a rare miss from Bradberry this year. Why you're not trying to do everything in your power to stop Pierce at times was a problem to me as well. I thought the defense had a pretty frustrating performance and let Houston stay in this football game. But at the same time, Gino, they were opportunistic. As you mentioned, 3 sacks today from Javon Hargrave. He has 5 now in the last 5 days because he had 2 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he's going to end up having probably I want to know the numbers on that. I saw at least 7 to 8 quarterback pressures. He looked like early 2021 Javon Hargrave. If that guy keeps it up, I don't know if the Eagles can afford to pay him next year.
I was going to say over or under 12.5 per year for Javon Hargrave for whatever team ends up paying him.
Yeah, he's at what, 5 sacks now or
yes.
6 sacks on the year? Yeah, 6 sacks.
He's well up there.
Leading the team now.
5 in the last 5 days is absolutely preposterous with how good Hassan Reddick has been with the.
How about that play in coverage, man? I mean, one of the best pass rushers in the league, and then he makes an athletic play in the open field against a tight end like that late in the game in the red zone. I mean, that was pretty impressive.
I want to say why it is so important to have that type of player, that hybrid type of player on the edge. That's the exact scenario because they were getting those looks. They were taking advantage of this, taking advantage of the Eagles' safety with those leverage type of plays. That is what you call a tendency breaker, where you have Hassan Reddick rushing the quarterback all the time, and then boom, all of a sudden he drops into coverage, and your quarterback has to kind of take a second look at it. And the play he made was athletic as could be to get his arm on the back hip of the corner, propel himself forward to get that arm out there, to knock the ball down in one of the biggest spots and the biggest moments on the field. That's why you pay Hassan Reddick the money. And we talked about how important it is to have speed and athleticism the other day, Lou. There were a bunch of times today that came to fruition late in this game.
Reddick was big. And, Gino, you think about the situation there. If O.J. Howard makes that catch there on the 3-yard line, now you can start thinking about running again with Dameon Pierce. The Eagles never brought him down at first contact. Suddenly Houston scores. They're only down 5 with 3 timeouts and, over 2 minutes to go. I mean, that's a different football game. Hassan Reddick really stepped up. And, I thought even against the run, Gino, most guys struggled today, but I thought Josh Sweat did make some big plays as well late in that game against Pierce. When they needed to finally slow him down, I thought it was Sweat that stepped up the most.
When they weren't able to get to Josh Sweat's outside shoulder and reach or down block him back across the play, he did an excellent job because he's able to get both hands out there and create that leverage between him and the defender while keeping his eyes in the backfield to read which way the play is going. And he's so explosive that when he gets his first step off of that block when his eyes are clear, it's nearly impossible for him to not take somebody down because the guy's 6'4", over 250 pounds. He has an incredible wingspan. And that was arguably the thing that got him more playing time early in his career in Philadelphia was those glimpses of him in the run game where they said, okay, the pass rush is there, but if we could develop this guy into being a full-time run defender, we truly have something in here. Right. Maybe the sack numbers haven't shown up this year, but you're right, Lou.
The pressures are. I mean, he's atop the league in consistent pressures. So
he's getting there, and he's able to set the edge for you in a multitude of different ways, defend in a way that Brandon Graham doesn't have with that length, with the true run stopping ability that Hassan Reddick might not have. He's a good mix of both of those guys.
I agree. A big part of this win, the Eagles take it 29-17 over the Houston Texans to get to 8-0. We'll continue to recap it right here on the Locked On Eagles postgame show. But first, another shout out to one of our sponsors of the day. It's LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new professional hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Head over to LinkedIn.com, add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. This is the Locked On Eagles postgame show. We're wrapping up this Thursday night recap of the Eagles' 29-17 win over the Houston Texans. 8-0 for the first time in franchise history. Up next, the Washington Commanders next Monday night. I'm going to be at that game. Cannot wait. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. Gino, for this win, though, again, an up-and-down performance from the defense. The offense overall, I thought, dominated for all 4 quarters. You had that rare fumble from Jalen Hurts off of the early snap, but on the ground, through the air, they really dominated. and the defense stepped up when they needed to. We talked about the sacks from Javon Hargrave, the big pass breakup from Hassan Riddick. We talked about as well Josh Sweat stepping up against the run. But how about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson too now? 4 straight games where he has an interception. He now leads the league in interceptions. We haven't been able to say that since Asante Samuel. And Gino, just first off, listen to some of these CGJ stats. So he's the first defensive back since Patrick Robinson on the Eagles to have 4 or more interceptions in a season. That was 5 years ago now in 2017. He's also the first defensive back on the Eagles to have at least 4 interceptions through the first 8 games since Asante Samuel in 2010. What CGJ is doing, getting traded to this defense in August, having to wear all these new hats that he didn't have to wear in New Orleans, to be turning over the football at this kind of clip. I mean, you mentioned it earlier in the show. You're going to have to show this guy the money. I mean, he's been incredible. That today, and it was a diving interception. It wasn't some easy pick like last week. This one was impressive.
You're preaching to the choir, my friend. And the most
I think every time a safety makes a play, man.
What position does he play, Lou? He doesn't play cornerback.
No.
He plays safety, and he has 5 interceptions. Folks, why is it so important to have this type of player? Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is exactly that. You are seeing what this type of player can do. Somebody that can defend in the box, somebody that can defend man tight end, somebody that can patrol the back end. He is coming up and making plays. He's always been a ball hawk. Go back to his time at Florida. Go to his time in New Orleans. What they were able to get him for is a downright steal. Howie Roseman should be wanted in 50 of the United States for that.
It felt like New Orleans didn't think he could do all this. They thought he was just a nickel corner.
He was a safety coming out of college. That's what he played at Florida. That's what you and I preached and said that we wanted on the NFL draft show all those years ago.
We were okay taking him in the first round. And
we wanted him in the first. And
Yeah.
you got him for basically nothing. And we said this point a couple weeks ago. It took him a few weeks to figure out exactly what it is to play in this defense. And now you're seeing how smart he is, because his instinct to react to these plays and be in the right area to even have a chance at 5 interceptions, Lou, that just comes down to how good of a football player he is.
He's in the right positions.
Always. And Howie Roseman, man, if you folks haven't seen the clip of him tonight,
Oh, that was great. Yeah.
you'll fall in love with him. Please go check it out. He goes to a fan and he tells them essentially, "You're welcome for the Super Bowl," with some,
because the sign
vulgar
was
language
"We
in
forgive
theirs.
you," and it was an AJ Brown picture, and there was a cross out of JJ Arthega-Whiteside's name and Jalen Reagor. So how he said,
he
forgive me
Yeah.
for winning you your first Super Bowl. That was good. That was
he's
definitely
on
good.
one. This franchise is on
Everybody
one.
should be on one. Man. I mean,
Everybody's on one. We haven't said the one thing about Jalen Hurts. He now continues his streak
That's
with
right.
11
straight regular season wins.
in the regular season, continuing to add to that franchise record. Lou, this is going to be one of those seasons. I know I want to live in the present of how awesome it is right now, but that Eagles fans can look back in 10 to 15 years and say, man, you remember how special that team
I'm trying
was?
to live in the moment, but I'm trying to do that reflection now too, though, because, I
Right.
remember in 2019, 2020, thinking back to 2017 and saying, wow, I took for granted how good they were playing football. And so right now I'm trying to remember how I felt in 2020 and be like, enjoy this for as long, not that it's going to end
beautiful
as quickly as that did, knock on wood, but I totally get what you're saying, trying to live in that moment for sure. And it's hard not to at 8-0. And Gino, for our LOE 3, I'm staying hot, by the way.
You're on fire, dude.
6-0
in the last 5 days, dude.
How about,
awesome.
so my 3 bets today were Sanders over 81.5 rushing yards. He had 93. Dallas Goedert, the most receiving yards of any Eagle, nailed that. And then the Kenny Gainwell anytime touchdown at plus 400. He scores. So I was pretty pumped about that one.
Dallas Goedert was plus 450, I think, as well.
Yeah, plus 450 to have more yards than Devontae Smith, and I just felt
Lou
like it was
walks
happening.
away
I'm on fire, man.
You're up 9.5 units on the day, Lou.
13
That's
and 11
huge.
now on the year, and I was
That's
7 and 11.
huge.
Yeah,
You're on fire, my man. And
yeah,
this was the one game I think we really kind of figured out what it was. Maybe it wouldn't be the prettiest game. Houston's going to stay in it with the time of possession. eating up the clock with Dameon Pierce, taking advantage of the play action when necessary. But at the end of the day, it was going to be the Philadelphia Eagles doing exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles do in the second half. Once again, putting up multiple second half scores when needed. You outscore Houston 15-3 in the second half. Your defense gets multiple turnovers. You once again, for 8 games in a row, have a positive turnover differential. I believe the broadcast on Amazon said that's the first time that's happened since the 1972 Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Eagles in the year 2022 are doing things that haven't happened in half of a century. Live and enjoy this ride. We don't know when it's going to end. Every game, every win isn't pretty, but as long as there's a 0 sitting in the loss column, you have to ride this thing for what it's worth. This has been such a fun stretch of Eagles football in every way, coming from behind, playing with leads, throwing the ball, running the ball. It's not just a one-trick pony. This is a Barnum and Bailey circus, man. You can
have a
get
quarterback that's
everything you want to
mastered the
see.
game right now, and that's what feels really fun because I missed having that elite kind of quarterback play.
I agree.
You're getting that right now from Jalen at 8-0. Up next, we got the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football at Lincoln Financial Field. We got you covered all throughout the week, Monday through Friday. We got a show for you right here on Locked On Eagles on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. We thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. For your next listen, again, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. Gino's about to hop on there now after the show. The biggest storylines of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, the Eagles take it tonight on Thursday Night Football, 29-17 over the Houston Texans, 8-0 for the first time in franchise history. Enjoy the highlights. Enjoy your night, everybody. We're going to sign off for now, though. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go, Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.